We got a born and bred entrepreneur.
Last year, the business was about 44 million. This year, the goal is to break through the $50 million mark is the goal. We're the first ones to come up with all of these things that now, looking back, they just happen to be the normal. Real estate in another 2 to 3 years is going to outpace the growth of our original business and even the income of the business.
Welcome to the Behind the Rise podcast hosted by the Perrina Brothers. My name is Angelo, and I'm joined by my brothers and business partners, Lucio and Valentino. On this show, we will speak to successful local, national, and global entrepreneurs, as well as discuss lessons we've learned in our 15-year career building a 9-figure organization. We're in the middle of our journey now and want to share with you all the wins, losses, and lessons learned behind the rise. All right, everybody, we have a special episode today. We have Victor Oliveira here, founder and CEO of Discover Marble and Granite, or Discover Surfaces.
Surfaces, right? Now, yeah. Discover. With all the different products out there, we rebranded.
Yep, a beautiful A-class company that we'll get into, and we have his son Lucas here as well. Yep. Say what's up, Lucas.
How's it going?
So we're going to get into it a little bit here. We got a born and bred entrepreneur, someone who's built an A-class business locally here and actually in Florida too as well.
Exactly, yep.
So we'll get into all that.
Mm-hmm. Well, pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
I love these types of conversations, so I'm excited and looking forward to it.
Yeah, no. So we've already been here for over an hour and a half talking business.
Yeah,
so
yeah. We could have had a whole podcast.
Yeah,
already.
We already filmed. Exactly, we already filmed 2 podcasts already. So we've had a great conversation. A lot of business stuff that we're going to get into here today. So Victor, let's start with tell us about where you grew up, how you. Sure. I know you migrated here from Brazil, to the United States. Mm-hmm. Let's just get into the background.
Yeah, definitely. So my parents immigrated to the U.S. in 1990. Yeah, I was 12 years old at the time. If you go back to that time, that period. I mean, here and also in Brazil, especially, interest rates were about 80-90% a year.
What?
Yeah, in Brazil. So when they talk about 8% now, and that's
sort
of what drove. That's what drove my dad to sell everything, whatever was left that we had, and make the move. But I grew up in a family. My dad was always an entrepreneur. He owned restaurants. He did farming. He did a little bit of everything. So I grew up around that. Then we moved here. As an immigrant, you're starting out from nothing. It was the first time actually that I ever saw my dad actually having a job and working for somebody else.
Wow.
So my memories prior to that was always him having a business and working for himself and building a life. But things got really bad. The economy got bad, and he decided, hey, let's go try this out in another country. And so the U.S. was the country, and he was 53. I was 12. My youngest sister was 8, and my oldest was 16. Mm-hmm. So it's pretty interesting to make that move at that age.
So yeah, let's wrap our minds around that for a second. He's been an entrepreneur. Your father, he was an entrepreneur his whole life. Yep. He worked for himself his whole life. Built a family over there in Brazil. Yep. And it was you and 2 siblings.
Yep. And my mother and at the time when we moved here, I mean, he was cleaning floors. He was working in restaurants, cooking and washing dishes and that. And my mother too. My mother never worked. I never saw my mother work. She was raising 3 kids and she was taking care of the house. Here we get here and now she's cleaning floors. So and to watch that process and go through that, I think it definitely helps shape you as a person, but also it fuels that fire within you to do something better and be able to help them, right? And do something where you can go back and hopefully be of value to them and offer.
At 53 years old, that is unbelievable.
Yeah, the level of risk that takes is crazy, and I'm sure that he probably did it for you guys.
Yeah.
He did it to move here, to give opportunity to you, to now Lucas and everyone else. Like that's the level of risk that takes is pretty incredible.
Exactly, and I think it gives you, going through that experience, it allows you to understand that, when you're comfortable, he could have been comfortable. He could have downsized everything he had and just stayed comfortable living a simple life in Brazil. But no, I think he just had this thirst for more and give us the opportunity to go to better schools. And I think that's the reason why he did. He said, we can be comfortable and still live a comfortable life. But what is that going to do to the kids? Can I send them to the best schools? Can I give them the opportunity they deserve? And I think what drove a lot of that decision for him was really the kids. It wasn't necessarily him.
Yeah.
So by being uncomfortable and moving to a new country with the family, he opened up the doors for all of us. And all of us did pretty well. My sister happens to be partnering in the business. She's down in Florida. She runs the companies down there. So everybody kind of benefited
Beautiful.
from his decision not to stay comfortable.
Beautiful. So you're 12 years old when you moved
Yep.
here, right? You're in school, probably
No
didn't know
English.
English, right?
Nope.
Yeah, figure it out, right?
Try to wrap your head around that one. And
Yeah,
just,
exactly.
7th grade and just walking into the classroom without understanding a word of
Tough.
English. And, again, it's about being comfortable. You push yourself. And within, I think, 6 months, I was in a place where I could understand, could have conversations. My English wasn't that great, but at least I could survive. But for 6 months, I didn't know where to go, how to go to I couldn't ask any questions. I mean, think about that for a second. It's
That's tough.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's tough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And at that age, it's tough too, because those kids are starting to be a little bit mean. That 7th grade is when
Right.
things start to get a little bit real.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We moved from Medford to Reading, and I was in the 5th grade, and I thought that was tough. So I couldn't imagine moving from Brazil
Exactly,
in the 7th grade. That's ridiculous.
Right.
Yeah.
So now, all right. So now you're going through high school. Like, how were you? Throughout high school, like, did you play sports? Were you a good student?
So yeah, I played a little bit of sport. I don't think I was ever a good student. I just did enough. I think I don't know if I was bored or whatnot, but I just did enough to get by. And I never stayed back. I would just barely do enough. And I think it's because I never found anything that really piqued my interest. It wasn't until after high school where I got into aviation and went to flight school and then business that I became an extremely good student. Like I would always wanted to get hundreds or A's or whatever I did. I wanted to be the top of my class. And so once I found that passion within me and I found something that really piqued my interest, then I became all of a sudden a good student.
And that's very common. I feel like entrepreneur we've ever talked to, they always said that, like, school, I did enough, whatever. Because for people like you, right?
Right.
If it doesn't interest you and you don't see how it serves you, what the
Or you
fuck
don't
am I
have
going to
the
put my
passion if you
100%
don't
Right,
effort into that?
exactly.
But all of a sudden there becomes a switch of like, ooh,
Yeah, this
This-
information, I can
right.
use it, right?
exactly. And then all of a sudden you start that
Yeah.
obsession, or you start
Exactly.
that dialing in focus mentality. And I think that's very common.
So how did you find the passion? Because that's rare, right? Aviation. So you were a pilot.
Yeah, I was a pilot.
That was kind of the past life, huh?
Yeah.
Right. So that was right after high school.
It was right after high school. Actually, I was still in high school. I started flying. I was 17.
Really?
So one day, it just happened by chance. So one day, I think I always had the passion and interest in airplanes, but never really crossed my mind to have a career in aviation. But one day, my dad called me up. He says, "What are you doing?" I said, no, I'm just sitting at home. It was an afternoon. And he says, I'm going to pick you up. So he came and picked me up. A co-worker of his was taking some flight lessons, and he drove me to the Worcester airport, and we went for a quick ride in a Cessna. And I remember we landed. It was only a 30-minute flight, and we landed. And I went to the flight instructor. I said, "Hey, what can I do to start taking some flight lessons tomorrow?" And he goes, "Oh, it's not quite like that." And we put something on the schedule. And the day, I remember, like it was yesterday, the day that we had that scheduled, it was a day like today outside, raining, foggy. Anyway, so I showed up at the airport. He goes, "We're not going anywhere."
Yeah,
But
maybe another
Take
day.
it
that's how
plane
bad I
ride
wanted to
Another day.
fly.
Yeah.
I just showed up in a really bad day, and she said, "Oh no, we're not going anywhere today."
Yeah.
But that's how it all started. So, never looked back. I got my commercial pilot's license. I was 20 years old.
Wow.
Flight instructor at 21. I had my first job at 22. And then 9/11 happened in 2001, and that was the last day on the job. And that's when I shifted completely careers. So
That's a big
that's how I
shift.
ended up in the business that we're in now.
So real quick, so because I hear a lot of immigrants who come here, their parents are like obsessed with the idea of college
Right.
in the U.S. Like they're like, it's a dream of mine for my son
Sure.
to go to college. Did you have that pressure from your dad?
Not really, actually. I think he's always wanted me to do well, no matter what I did,
Yeah.
right? And I think because my mother did go to college, my dad didn't, and I think he understood that it really wasn't about college, right? It wasn't about school. I think it's about the drive. There's so many little things that can make you successful. I mean, you could go to college and not be successful, so it doesn't
yeah.
guarantee you success, right?
Right.
But he never really pushed me to do anything. Just he introduced me. It's funny. Like I wish I had that touch. I always think about it. Like he gave me so much flexibility and so much freedom to choose.
Right.
Right. And he introduced me. He did little things like taking me flying. That opened up a whole new world for me.
Right.
Or immigrating to the U.S. and worrying about which school I went to, at least, or where we lived, so I could have a good education. He did those things, but he never really pushed me in any direction. He let me figure things out on my own, and I think that was important.
Sounds like a great father.
Yeah, that's really important.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So 9/11 happens, complete shift, right?
Yeah,
Complete.
totally.
Why the shift?
Hold on, before the shift is fly. I hate to fly. I'm
Yeah.
scared shitless of flying. I'm like just starting to get over it now. Is it safe? Is it?
Oh yeah, I feel safer.
Is it good?
Honestly,
Are we good?
I honestly feel safer in an airplane than I do.
So
down
when
here.
there's
Quite honestly,
turbulence,
I do.
we're good. I don't
Oh,
need
yeah,
to shit my
turbulence,
pants
no.
when there's turbulence.
I mean, I honestly love it. When was the first time you even brought me? I don't even know.
I mean, you grew up flying with me.
Yeah.
And Valentina, she's 13, my daughter. She loves flying, and she actually flies the airplane when I take her up, and she loves
Wow.
it. She's never scared, never. And everybody's so used to flying in the family, which is good. I'm glad because
That's good. You don't want to be like our family.
because
where
we do
like-
fly quite a bit. Yeah.
You want to know how we fly? Let me give you an example how we fly. My mom's in the front. She has rosary beads,
No way.
religious.
Oh yeah,
rock.
Bible out,
Full
roll the
of
whole
water.
time. Yep, in
The whole
full
time
prayer.
she's looking at me saying we're fine while she's shaking, squeezing my arm or my hand.
Yeah.
My dad's in the back with like a Xanax or a
Oh
K.
yeah, he
Right.
took 10 Xanax. He doesn't know what's happening.
So he's half alive.
Unconscious.
We have to check his like heartbeat every like 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Well, that's
And-
tough.
And then like mid-flight, I look at Angelo. Angelo, like he's the confident one. He's sweating his nuts off, and I'm like patting off his forehead, like as we land.
That's how we fly.
That's
so
how
when
we
we
fly.
book like a trip to go somewhere.
On the
It-
two planes.
No, yeah, please. So now we go in two planes.
Is that right? So
Yeah.
just in case one goes
Exactly.
down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we got two planes going.
I have a friend that does that. Husband and wife never fly together.
Yeah.
Isn't that
They
incredible?
never fly together because they think something is going to happen on every trip they're on, and that's kind of it's
Negative thing.
Yeah, real quick story because I was afraid of. I love the ocean, but I was afraid it was in the ocean. Unrelated to our topics here, but so I said, I got to take scuba diving. I got to see what's down there. I was afraid of sharks, whatever. Faced the fear, right? So took scuba diving, got certified, and I did some dives with sharks. But every dive that I did, I thought I was going to die. The shark was going to eat me, so I was going to drown. Something was going to happen, and it got to the point where, like, you know what? I already faced my fear. I feel like I conquered it. I didn't. I stopped diving because I don't have to do it. But if I had a fear of flying, and everybody needs to fly. If you go on vacation, you need to fly. You go back home and visit somebody,
Right.
you need to fly. So I don't know how I would do if every time I got on the plane, I thought that plane was going to go down. It's
It'd
not
be
a good thing,
terrible.
right?
Yeah,
Not a
yeah.
good thing.
Facing your fears
Yeah.
is an extremely important trait in grit
Yeah.
to have. Like even, with anything really. Like if you have a fear and you're one of those guys who like, let me just go nose deep into it. Like David Goggins talks about all the time. It builds so much discipline and
Right.
grit.
Yeah, and we're talking about flying, but imagine that's probably what holds a lot of people back from starting their own business, making a move in
Correct.
life, right?
Correct.
Progressing in life. I think it's that fear of failure. It's the fear of I'm going to lose everything.
Right. Exactly.
Right? I could lose my family. I could lose whatever savings I have. So that fear, we're talking about flying, but that's real, especially in business. you
Yeah,
know,
it's a
or a
great
career
analogy.
change, or a shift in career. It just doesn't have to be business.
So many people get so comfortable in their
Yeah.
routine, and it's a fear base. Like
Exactly,
if
yeah.
they make one change, that they could lose what they
Yeah.
have right now.
Right.
It's a great lesson.
Back to the airplane for 1 second.
Yeah.
Just a fun tip. Anytime we go on an airplane, we have to scan if we see any nuns.
Yeah.
We're like, here we go. Is there any nuns?
There's
Got one? We're good.
We're
Yeah,
good.
we're-
Yeah.
we're
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
This thing's going down because God's not from this plane down.
Yeah.
We spot the nun, and then I also have everybody else eyed on the plane. So, God forbid somebody gets up and starts acting cute, like with
Yeah.
I'll friggin' storm.
Yeah, you're
A
you know the
direct-
beeline. Yeah.
You don't want to have me in an aisle a foot and a half wide, and there's no other place to go. I'll take you down.
My dad
There's no
will
way you're
shake
gonna
the
stand.
hand of the pilot
Yeah.
to make sure he has sturdy hands. So
Yeah.
he'll
Is
like,
that right?
he'll be like, he'll walk.
He wants to
in,
go
"Where's
meet the pilot.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
you know?
Yeah.
You
That's
better get
us,
me
yeah.
there safe. Yeah.
But I have a question. So when the 9/11 thing happened, what made you switch to leave that industry? Was it like pay structure or more like what happened in the
No, it's
industry?
so interesting because it's just survival mode. Life happens to a lot of people, right? At some point in life, and I think there's always a shift or a decision that we all make, and then when you look back, it's like imagine if that one dinner with somebody at the right time didn't happen. So what happened was I went to my mother's house and she invited me over. So I'm going to cook dinner. It was just regular day, weekday. And I went, I'm sitting there. a week or two after 9/11, and I said, I got to figure out how to pay the bills. I don't think we're going back flying anytime soon. I was a young pilot, very little hours at the time in the commercial world. And then I knew pilots that had, 8,000 hours, and they were ex-military pilots, very well-trained ex-Navy pilots, and they got laid off. And they were captains, American Airlines. So if the market comes back, who's going to get hired first? Who's going to go back to work first?
Right.
Me or this guy who's got 20 years of experience, So I said, I don't think we're going to be called back anytime soon, so I got to figure something out. My brother-in-law was sitting at the table, and he was a fabricator. He worked for a company doing fabrication. He said, if you want, we can do this thing on the side. I can help you in the weekends, and we'll make a little garage, a little building. You go out and sell. We'll make some countertops, and in the weekends we can install it. I said, it's a great idea. Maybe I can get some income that way. And so I started looking at a place, and the first building that I found, or the only building I found, was about 5,000 square feet, and the rent was pretty high, a lot higher. It wasn't a big number; it was like 3,000 at the time. But to me, it was like, how do I pay $3,000? This is 20-something years ago. And so I found that building. I signed a lease, never looked back. And to me, it was scary as hell. Like, I got to make this work. It's like there's no turning back. So all I did was go out and sell and sell. And we kept overselling, So there was always more demand than we could produce, and that was a good thing. And it got to the point where a year or two later, when finally I could have gone back to that industry, to the airline business, there was no going back. We had, 18, 20 employees, and actually probably more than that, close to 30 already at that point. I said, there's no going back.
And what was your pitch, right? Because you barely have any information about this industry besides you said your brother-in-law.
Right. Yeah.
And then you just got this lease. What was the step to then, how did you start?
Yeah.
Did you just went to a kitchen and bath dealer?
Yeah,
and said,
that's,
Yeah,
I heard, actually listened. Believe it or not, my wife says I'm not a good listener, but I did listen at the
everyone's
time.
partner thinks that, yeah.
So I remember the first couple of meetings that I went to, and the first question that they would ask is, do you guys sell retail? And I kept saying, I was trying to figure out why they were asking that question. And it became clear to me that a lot of the companies they were using at the time were trying to do both, right? Sell retail and wholesale. So every time I would go into a kitchen and bath deal, that was a concern of theirs. And I'm going, I can understand that they probably don't want to do business with a company that's going to be in conflict, trying to take that customer away from them. Right. So I changed my pitch, and that's when it really works. I said, no, we're strictly wholesale. We don't sell retail. And we stayed to this day true to that model.
Still
Our
don't
model
do
has
retail?
So I take it back, because now over the years you get to meet a lot of people, and you know a lot of people, and you always get referrals.
Right.
And so we probably do, it's small amount. I mean, it's not even 2% of our business, maybe 1 or 2, where we get referrals, right? We have somebody that we know and they want to buy direct, and we sometimes arrange something that we can actually sell to them. But other than that, we don't market, we don't advertise anything, we don't go after any retail business.
Yeah.
It's always been wholesale. It just worked out well.
Interesting.
Can we talk back to that real quick? So, so you have the lease, you're going out to sell. So let's say you got a sale.
Right.
Now what happens? Did you pass back to your brother-in-law? And
Yeah. So what
And he fabricated?
Yeah, so we because we got that building, I had this little manual saw. I did everything, because we didn't have employees in the first few months. So what I would do is basically I would go out and sell throughout the day, come back in at around 3 or 4 o'clock, change, and fabricate with him. He would punch out at his job, come back, show up at 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and we would work until 10 o'clock at night. And then hopefully the next day, we, instead of fabricating, would be installing that afternoon. So we'd fabricate one night, install late afternoon.
That's
So every
awesome.
appointment was after 5 o'clock. That's how we did it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
where'd you guys get the product, the material?
So Granite was very new at the time. Believe it or not, it's
What year
only
was this?
2000 and late 01, early 2002.
Okay, so right after.
Right after
okay.
9/11.
Yeah.
Yeah, the company was incorporated on December 4th, 2001.
Yeah.
So it was only literally not even quite 3 months after 9/11.
Wow.
Yeah. So talking about the product, the name Discover came from that, because the other thing that I noticed every time I talked about granite, marble, and quartz was just starting to come along, people didn't. They're like, well, they didn't know about it that much. They're like, oh, you can put a rock as a countertop on my cabinets. It wasn't mainstream as it is today. So I said, well, people are discovering this product right now. So I'm probably in the beginning stages of something really good. And it turned out to be that way. So the name Discover came because of that, because it was so new for a lot of people and then there were a lot of companies getting started too as a distributor. So we aligned ourselves with a company at the time that was just starting to grow their business, and they were supplying material. They gave us terms right off the bat, things that don't happen today.
Yeah.
We were able to do it, and that was the only reason we were able to succeed, because if I had to buy the material in order to sell it, I don't think we would have done it. But they gave us 60-day terms right off the bat, without even knowing us, and that was an injection of capital, basically. It's like a line of credit, right?
Yeah, exactly.
You have a $50,000-$60,000 line of credit with this supplier that can give you the product, you can manufacture, you can install it, get paid, and then pay him back.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
That's
during
beautiful.
that time, were you like when you went into it? Did you have like a stockpile of money that you saved up for, or did you go in with like $10 in your account and made a risk?
It was like no money you saved up.
Yeah.
Yeah, no money at all. So I mean, I had a little bit. I probably had $12,000 in my name, if that. So I went to my sister-in-law, and I think I borrowed $20,000. My mother-in-law, $15,000. Good friend of mine gave me another $15,000, I think. All I know is that I went from being just broke to being in debt to family and friends in the tune of like $60,000 to $80,000 at the end. And that's the other driver. Like, you know, it's like burning the bridge and say, once you cross over, there's no turning back, right? You don't have that bridge anymore. You just got to make it happen. And I think that was a big driver for me to succeed, was that I got to pay these people back.
Yeah.
You don't pay, you have to pay your mother-in-law back. You have to pay your sister-in-law back.
Right.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, you can't
run
take from
Sunday
that.
dinner.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that would be a bad thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You don't want that.
So when that happened, right? So let's see the roadmap here. So you got the lease, you're starting to get some sales. What was like the next couple years look like? Like what did that, like day to day, like what were you doing?
Sure. It's very similar even to this day. It's always a balance of continuing to try to find, it's setting new goals. It's, the numbers just get bigger, I think, and the responsibilities obviously get bigger, and the problems get bigger. Everything gets just amplified, in my opinion. But I think the formula of success in business is no different. Like, I still show up at the same time. I eat lunch on my desk. I don't take breaks for lunch. So the same formula that I used in the early days, it's no different now. It's just everything's amplified. I think people try to overcomplicate things a little bit in business, and especially as business starts to evolve, they try to get too fancy or too this, or they want to do this different. You just need to understand, I think, your core values and what works, and stay consistent. And again, everything's going to get bigger, including your problems, including your headaches, but the formula, like the Coca-Cola formula, doesn't change, right? What made Coca-Cola successful 100 years ago, it's what makes them successful today.
Yeah, I love that.
And every time they try to change it, they failed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
If you read the history of Coca-Cola, it's just how many times they fail. Every time they try to tweak that formula just a little bit, they went back to the original one.
Yeah. So, I mean, but we understand the marble and granite business, because our parents are in it as well.
Yeah.
So I don't want to understate this. Like, your company is probably one of the biggest around, and it's really an A-class setup. Like, if you see the way it is, it's not like every other marble company. It's not. It's your warehouse is, how many square feet is the warehouse? And
so we have just to give you guys a little perspective on the business. So so we have here in Massachusetts, it became a little manufacturing. It's just 3 buildings, so it's not just one building. So we've got a 35,000 square foot building, a 27,000 square foot building, and another 10,000 square foot building. So each building does its own thing: logistics, manufacturing, showroom, warehouse. We have another location in Connecticut with 25,000 square feet. Down in Florida, 12,000 square feet, and we're building another 12 now. And we had another location in Orlando, which we sold a few years ago. And then we have a small warehouse and showroom in the Cape. But overall, we're almost 100,000, probably a little over 100,000.
A little over
feet.
now.
yeah, I've seen them, and they're really like A-class, like really beautiful showrooms. Like, so you
Thank
guys
you.
built
Appreciate
it
that.
the right way, and you built big and aggressive. And a lot of people in our industry, like we talked about earlier, it's difficult to scale and difficult to grow.
Very difficult, yeah.
So, and you guys are like a cut above everybody. So what was it that you were doing? Like, what's the secret sauce?
So
I won't
I'll tell you
my
a quick
mom.
story. So
Yeah,
I'll tell.
you won't.
No, it's interesting. It's a great question because I even asked myself
Yeah.
that question. So how did I even do this? What got in my mind to even try to stay ahead? Because it's the buildings, but it's the way we build the showrooms. It's the quality of people that we hire. So it's an overall package. There's not just one simple answer to that question. But I was listening. Going back to studying whether I was a good student or not. When I started the business, I became a really, really good student of business in general. So I used to listen to all sorts of, at the time it was just CDs and going to conferences and that sort of thing. But there was one thing that it was this guy, which most people have heard, Brian Tracy, old school sales trainer. He said something once at a CD that I was listening to. He says, if you're going to get into an industry, you need to be an innovator. And if you don't innovate, if you're not staying ahead in every aspect of your business, you're not going to make it. You're not going to be number one in your industry. You always have to aim to be number one or number two in every industry that you're in. I'm like, that's interesting. How can I be number one or number two? And innovation to me was such a new word. Like, how do you? I'm getting into this business, as we know. Like, you guys, your parents are from Italy, and stone has been around for hundreds, if not thousands of years, right? And so I'm in this business that is thousands of years old, and how do you innovate stone? It comes out of the ground.
Right.
It's a countertop. What kind of innovation can I do with that? So that stuck in my mind. So to me, it became like, all right, maybe not the product, but how we make it, how we hire, how we present ourselves. Customer service, how we innovate that. How can we innovate the equipment that we use?
Yeah.
Become more efficient, more productive, right? So we started innovating everything around that countertop, and that's how the culture of the company was built. Because that's throughout the company. That's just not from me. That's everybody.
Yeah.
Right. So to that point, right? Because you did that to maintain that as you grow is very difficult too.
Yeah,
it's easy to say that in theory.
It gets harder actually.
Yeah, it's easy to say it in theory, but then all of a sudden you have 100 employees. You're like, shit, I have to keep the same model throughout 3 different cities, 3 different states.
That's
it's difficult.
It is.
So how did you get from, let's say, your first 3,000 square foot facility to your second, to your third, to your fourth? Can you kind of talk through that process?
It's interesting. I think as we discussed earlier, that in business there's always events that happen, and they tend not to be so positive at times, and you make a shift. And the best shifts that we had came from very negative experiences.
Yeah.
All right, the 3,000 square feet building, for example, 5,000 square feet actually was.
Oh yeah.
Yep. What happened to that one was that it was in a small town in Sutton, and I didn't realize at the time that this was a multi-tenant building. And the town doesn't have any sewers. Everything was on septic system.
Holy shit.
And the septic system failed in this entire complex.
Oh shit.
So overnight, the next morning, we had all sorts of from the health, Board of Health, and you name it, showed up that morning, shut the whole building down.
Wow.
And I'm like, how can they just put you out of business overnight? And they said, nobody's coming back in this building because you can't use your bathrooms.
Right.
There's nobody's coming back in here until this is fixed. So I had to shift really quick and find another place to move. And we actually, within 2 weeks, we moved the entire business 2 miles away to a different building. And that building was 9,000 square feet, but we had the opportunity to pick up another 10,000 square feet next door, which we did a year later. So if that hadn't happened,
right,
we wouldn't have been, because when that happened, all of a sudden we found ourselves in 9,000 square feet. And I said, well, now I got a bigger problem. I got to pay this bigger rent.
Exactly.
So I went out and started selling more. And this happened in 2004. And if you go back in history and you look what happened to the real estate market and the housing market between early 2004 to when the bust happened, right, in 2008, that was probably the largest growth period of the housing market in our generation, at least, right? So it happened at the right time. We just happened to be at the right time with enough room for growth. And then it happened again at the end of 2008, right? I said, okay, we're going to take that step again. So I went and bought a building. We added to it, and that was the 35,000 square foot building that we have now. And then I made the move. I bought a lot of equipment, millions of dollars worth of equipment, and we put it in there, and we finished construction in December of 2008. And we all know what happened.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Here it comes.
Here it comes.
We're in the doghouse
and
now.
I said, boy, this was it. It was a nice ride. We're not going to make it through this. There was no way. I mean, I remember sitting, he was young. And I went to his room. He was sleeping. And I remember one day I sat next to him in bed, and I looked at him, and I looked around. And we had just built a beautiful home too, on top of it all.
Right at that time, yep.
Right at we had just moved in. And I said, man, I built all this, and I don't know if we're going to have it 2 months from now. I don't know if we're going to be here 2 months from now. And that was a very scary thought to have.
That's real.
You know what's funny?
That's a real feeling.
I think that it's like the business gods do this, right? It's like it has happened to us. It's like as soon as you feel like you're up and up, you're about to peak, everything's going great, you finally took the leap to buy your own house that you wanted or whatever, and then something happens.
Yeah.
Right.
Whether it's a huge
Recession,
World War III potentially, like all this shit, and then just the business gods.
COVID, right?
COVID. The business gods test you.
And
that's where you find where the winners are. That's where you find where the warriors are, the really great business people. Because they can either look at that and they sink, or they look at that and that's where they become the best during those moments.
Yeah.
It is true.
This is another example of, I think every single episode we've had this exact conversation or thing come up where things happen. They don't happen to you, they happen for you.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You know?
It's the ability, again, but it goes back to, I think, the mindset of us business owners or entrepreneurs that you no matter what's thrown at you, we have to figure out a way to dig ourselves out of whatever mess we find ourselves in, right? There's no choice. And the people that do that the best, and I don't care if it's just in business or sports, I mean, in life in general, it could happen with relationships between father, mother, and son, or a couple, or whatever. We're all going to go through those tough times. It's the people that can figure out a way to crawl ourselves out of that hole.
Yeah.
Are the ones that are going to make it, because it's going to happen multiple times. So it happened in 2008 with us, and I think having that house we had just built, I think, gave me the motivation not to lose it. And then as the business started to pick up again, we were probably the only company that was set up with the right equipment, the right amount of capacity to ride the wave out of that recession. And that's when we doubled and then tripled in size.
All right. So at that time, right? So that just happened, right? Like, how did you? So basically, you just built this huge facility that had massive.
We had
operational
robots.
capacity.
We had all the CNC.
I remember hearing about it because at this time, that's when I just graduated college, right?
Yep.
And that's when I was working for my mother at the time, and I was either gonna go on my own or keep going with her. But at the time, I was researching everybody who was around and this and that. I probably even drove around your parking lot, if I remember right.
Peeking in windows.
So many,
Is there a
watching
garage
it
door
back.
open?
I've
Like,
done
how do
plenty
you
of
do
that, so I don't feel
Yeah.
bad about saying that. I've done it. You got to know your competition, right? You got to know. You
So
gotta
I
know.
heard that you guys had like the CNCs, the saws, like really able to produce, right? So, and we were small. We had like one saw, one machine. So we were like, all right, we can make it through this time because we were thinking the other way, like keep your overhead low, keep your, and we'll just hire staff. And if we need to reduce staff or whatever, it's an easier thing to let go rather than a huge nut on a $10 million worth of equipment. You know? So that was our mentality. I remember having these conversations at that time. So your mentality was opposite. We're in. We already built this mother. Let's
Let's run with it. Yeah, let's go with it.
And what was like the sale? Like, did you have to go down on your pricing? Like, what was the strategy?
That was the painful piece of it, because you had to erode your margins to survive, because we were coming up every month. We would have sales meeting where we would launch a new initiative, promotion, free this, free that, free sync, free event. I mean, you had to get creative. Yeah. And I think that's also what kept us and made us successful, because it's all about innovation, right? So how do we innovate again to get ourselves out of this mess, right? So what we did is became very creative with selling. Just creating programs. Every month there would be a new flyer with a new thing. We'd hit every kitchen and bath dealer. And then the competition they were always trying to catch up to us. We did a vanity program. Like, we're the first ones to come up with all of these things that now, it's looking back, they just happen to be the normal. Yeah. Everybody has it. Everyone needs to have these things. But before nobody had it, we launched it, and then just everybody came along and did it.
And then I have a question too. So during this, do you have partners?
My sister and brother-in-law were the only partners. Not anymore, because we bought them out. Yeah. But we're still connected. It's still the same business. And then they're in Florida, and we're here.
Oh, cool.
So when you were growing, like during this time, what was like the distribution of labor? Like, were you handling the
Sales.
Like,
Right.
what was everyone
Yeah.
doing?
Yeah, so my wife and my sister were always handling the office. My brother-in-law was mostly in operations in the manufacturing side of it, and I was the sales. I was always sales, customer relation, and then overseeing everything else. Right?
Yeah.
I ran the sales meeting, I ran the office meetings, the production meetings, just because I wanted to make sure that things were moving in the right direction. But my focus has always been on the selling side of things, on the innovation. When it comes to equipment, I made all those decisions. I made all those purchases, designing the facilities every time we moved.
Yeah.
Just working with contractors and whoever to build the facilities that we're in or the showroom. So that was kind of my part.
Yeah.
And then the reason why we decided even to move to expand the business and go down to Florida was that we had this partnership that I wanted. I was the aggressive one. I wanted to grow. I wanted remember, number one or number two in the industry. If it wasn't that way, it wasn't going to be. But I set my eyes on being number one in the industry always. And then my sister and brother-in-law, they were a little bit more like, okay, no, this is good. You know, we don't need to go that fast. They we had the opportunity to say, hey, why don't we just open a second facility? You guys can run that, and then I'll do whatever I have to do with this one. And they've been amazing people throughout the whole thing these past 20 years, because they never for a second questioned me whether I was doing the right thing or the wrong
Blind
thing.
faith. Yeah.
Never once.
It's a beautiful partnership.
Did they ever come back and said, "Are you crazy? What is this?" I'll get it from my wife every now and then. She keeps me on track, but not them. But then when we opened in Florida, they were able to do whatever felt comfortable for them and grow it to the level that they feel comfortable. And to me, I never want to feel comfortable. I always want to be uncomfortable.
Yeah. And
that's my life. You know, and I question myself, what the heck am I doing? Why am I doing this again?
Right.
But it's the world I live in. If I'm not feeling uncomfortable, I feel I'm not growing.
How important do you think it is to have, because you have kids,
Right.
right? You have kids and you have a family. How important is it to have a good wife or like a strong rock at home during that process? Because again, you're going out, you're being aggressive, you're growing, but you also have another.
Yeah.
It's almost like you have a second life, like your family.
Right.
At home.
Oh, yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about that?
So my wife, Christina, she's always been involved in the business from day one. And I'm usually the one that gets to do these cool things and talk to you guys and learn a lot. But she should really be the one that should be here next to me, because she deserves a lot of that credit. I don't think we would have been the company that we are without her support, her drive, and her vision. And we complement each other. You know, it hasn't been easy. 20 years working with your wife, right?
Yeah, that's tough.
You can
with our parents, we get it. Yeah.
because it's very transparent what you say to each other, right? There's no filter sometimes, and that's tough. So, but she, you know, over the years, what I realized that a lot of the stuff that created, and we didn't have a lot of conflicts, but every time we did have something, it was me fighting a truth that she would see something and she would open up my eyes for it, and I'm like, no, it's not like that. No, I'm not like that. No, I didn't do this. And then I started to notice that she has an ability and a gift that I don't have.
Yeah.
You know, she can recognize people a lot better than I do. Meaning, even if somebody's feeling down, she'll walk through the office, you know, this is going on with this person. Something's going to happen. I'm like, no, you just seen things. You're just being too paranoid. And then it happens. But she has an ability to see things that I can't. So I started to shift. Instead of being confrontational with some of the stuff that she would say, I started to say, hey, she's an asset. She complements that side of me that I don't have. And it gave me a new respect towards her that I didn't have before, maybe in the beginning of the business.
Yeah.
And that's tough to achieve. I talk to a lot of couples in business or family members. It could be it could be you guys.
Big time.
Because I'm sure you all complement each other in a different way. And that's what makes the business successful. That's why you guys can scale it the way you do. It's a partnership. Try to remove one piece out of it, it's not the same anymore.
Exactly. That's 100% true.
Right.
And once you recognize it, like you said, that's when you really start having appreciation.
And you have a respect for that person
Exactly.
because, you know, all those things that maybe was the source of a conflict now becomes a source of respect because you do better than I can in that.
You know, that's a great way to put it. I mean, because I think we battle all the time, right?
Yep.
Me and my brothers, and I think it's exactly what you said. I think if we look at it in that way, where it's like, all right, you know what, that thing that we were fighting for, you were right about that, and now that you realize that you have the respect for them that you might have not have had before for them.
Yep.
That's good. That's a good line.
I also think something I've noted at the more business people I talk to have a strong wife at home or to have a good nucleus at home is so important.
It is
to grow, like
Totally.
especially as a man, like to go out, make the risk.
Tino's
you can.
taking applications for a rock at home.
No, I honestly admire it. You know, me being, you know, I'm single now, but I admire when I see that type of relationship and that
Right.
type of nucleus, because I think it's so important
Extremely
to elevate.
important.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean,
Extremely
you have an
important.
amazing wife.
I know.
You know what I mean? Like
Tell
my
me about
brothers have amazing wives, and I truly think that is what makes them who they are, and that's what makes them unique and great in their own way, because they have that
Yeah.
security at home.
Yeah, well, what it does is it allows you to focus 100% of
Right.
your energy on the business.
Yeah.
Like I don't have to worry about like the kids,
Right.
like getting to soccer or like making sure their
Right. Oh,
things
yeah.
are done, and she doesn't bother me. Like I'm just, I see some guys like their wives call them 100 times a day while they're at work.
Yeah,
Like, what are they calling for? What are they saying?
My wife is funny because she handles, by the way, she handles all the personal stuff like bills. And I never,
Yeah.
if you ask,
Right.
I have never seen a paycheck of my own because
Me,
I'm
same.
on payroll. I've been for 20 years. I've never touched a paycheck, so it goes directly.
Right.
But at the same time, I don't remember the last time I paid a electric bill. Because she handles certain things to allow me and give me the time to do what I do best.
Exactly.
Okay. To the point where she even worries about my lunch. Like she's like, okay, I'm bringing you lunch. I'm doing this because I don't even have to think about lunch. And I eat on my desk. She usually eats with me. But she's saying and it happened naturally. Like she
Yeah.
took a lot of little things that would have gotten in the way, like the kid stuff, taking to soccer, doing all of this. She thinks through like, if I don't do this, that means he's got to stop doing what he's doing to go
Exactly.
do that. And so I'll take care of it. So she juggles that really, really well. And the funny thing is, in life, these things usually happen by chance, right? We didn't plan it that way.
Right.
But with the experience that we have now, looking back, it's like, wow, I lucked out. It was pure
You got to
luck.
win.
Big
Big
time.
time.
'Cause you gotta
win.
win it.
Mother.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
All right, so we're back to 2008, right?
Yep.
So basically your strategy was sales cures all, right?
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Let's
Get the revenue
get
up.
out there. Let's, instead of retreating and retracting and cutting costs, let's control our costs, but at the same time, let's sell.
Yeah.
Even if we have to reduce our margins a little bit, we got to produce. We got to fill up this facility. We have the
Exactly.
most capacity out of anybody in the state. Let's load the thing up.
Yeah. So I always joke around with this is that I think in my life there's never been anything. Well, there has been some positive things without something really bad or negative, kind of being the shift towards that positive. But 2008, for example, if you think about it, it's not quite 10 years, but 2008, 9. But it's 2001 was the first event. Then that happened in 08,
Yeah.
09.
Yeah.
But so we created this strategy, like you said, sales solves all of our problems, at least when you need that revenue.
Right.
So we just focus on sales for the next 2 or 3 years. And by 2011, we were in a growth pattern again, bigger than we were in 08, which was the peak. That was the peak
Yeah.
year for us. So it took us 3 years to get back to that level.
Yeah.
But then we kept just growing double digits again.
Here we go.
And that all the way through, when COVID hit, I think it was the first months or quarter that we were down was that first quarter and second quarter of 2020. It picked back up again in third quarter, and then by fourth quarter, we were growing again.
Yeah.
So we'd had maybe a 2 or 3 quarter sort of decline, but we picked right back up. And if you think about COVID, it's almost exactly or a little over 10 years from that 08,
Yeah.
09 period in time, right? And almost the same exact thing happened. Obviously, we were more stable, and we had a stronger foundation, financially especially, at that point. But we had just invested a lot of money. We built a new facility. We had just opened a new manufacturing plant in Connecticut, bought all new equipment. We made millions and millions of dollars in investment throughout the company.
Yeah.
And we moved into our new building, new headquarters, which was a $4 million build in late February of 2020. 3 weeks later, we had to shut down. Think
Yeah.
about that. Like we had just expanded,
Here
had
we
just
go,
done it.
guys.
Here we go
Yeah.
again, right?
The
I
business
remember
gods,
that.
they just
Yeah,
had that blessing.
exactly.
That was
So,
the craziest time.
Yeah. So it's just it's going to happen again. The way I feel now, it's like, okay, I just got to get ready for the next the next cycle.
Exactly.
If it's every 10 years, then I'll be ready again in a few years.
How important do you think it is to reinvest into your business?
It's what we've always done. Always
Yeah.
done. We have always done that. I think the first time now, over the last couple of years, we started to diversify a little bit more outside our business. So we have this real estate company now that we've been growing and adding on properties every so often, every 6 months, 3 months, whatever. So I think it's important to reinvest. I mean, we're always reinvesting our money in one way or the other, right? Do I take enough just to survive and live a good life? But Other than that, everything goes back to the business.
I mean, at this point, the money's either going to be into the business or in real estate. So one of the two.
And you focus on commercial.
Yeah, commercial.
What made you kind of shift there? Because obviously there's a lot of residential, multifamily buyers, all this stuff, but you focus on commercial.
We did start with residential.
Yeah, we did some, and the way so you guys are gonna get a laugh out of this one because we're not. You guys know what it's like to sell. Do these $3,000 transactions in the countertop side of the business, and you're dealing with a lot of different transactions, a lot of different homeowners, and a lot of different problems. Right? It's constant. It's throughout the day. Well, to me, the residential multi-unit felt the same way, right? It's a dishwasher that breaks down, or the washer and dryer that doesn't work, or the whatever doesn't work, right? So you're getting those calls constantly. On the commercial world, then we had these other commercial buildings, and I'm thinking, man, triple net leases,
Right.
Don't hear about shit.
We-
No problems.
Yeah, exactly.
So true.
And then all of a sudden, we did this one lease, and this company comes in and did a $1.8 million build out.
They
And he
did.
turned
your
this
building.
old shell of a building and put in Class A office space. Amazing, with like a $400,000 server room and generators. I mean, just imagine that. I don't- which tenant is going to come into the residential world and do that for you?
Never.
Exactly.
No, they're
Right.
gonna
So
They wouldn't
paint,
even.
they're gonna put nice appliances.
exactly,
Yeah,
and then a 10-year lease guaranteed with increases already built in. So I looked at it. I'm like, I have to be crazy to try to do this in the. Not that it doesn't work, right? But because I already have this other business that's very complex and full of all sorts of issues and problems on different jobs that we do. I said, can I be on maybe this? I looked at our industry and I said, okay, there's a distributor, there's a manufacturer. So it just gets bigger and bigger.
Yeah.
And those guys, like we talked about, some of those vendors that are making quartz slabs, for example, they make a slab and they ship it to you, and they're not going to hear about that slab that cracked a year or two later
Right.
inside the house. Even if you try to get the warranty, they're not going to give it. Forget it. Oh, you cut it, you put it in, you own it.
Yeah.
Right. So that's what I wanted to be. I wanted to be that on that other side. And in the real estate world, what does that look like? You could be the developer, which I didn't want. I think there's a lot of risks to that.
Big time.
Right.
Yeah.
I wanted to find properties where had the right location, the right type of properties that were desirable, and that I could add value and be able to make money. I didn't want to go in to just buy something with a cap rate of 8% and park my money. That's not what I'm in for.
Yeah.
I want properties that I can go in, fix it, stabilize it, add value, and reap the benefits of that work.
Yeah. I love that.
We have the similar in the residential world, but more recently, we have a couple of commercial properties that we bought over the years, and the more that we look into it, we're having the same realization that you're having.
Yeah.
Like we have all these, 80 units. Fucking my dad's running around in his Prius, flipping out at these people, shoveling, refrigerator.
Every day.
This.
Yeah.
This. I'm like, it's the same thing every time.
Yeah.
And then we have our
Just
other.
replace the fridge. You'll be done.
And in the
you know?
commercial, we don't hear a peep.
No.
The only
they
time we
don't.
hear something is if they tell us good news, like you said, like we're gonna renovate this and we're
Yeah.
gonna make this
Right.
better, and all of a sudden you're thinking like, thank you,
Right.
Yeah.
thank you for making my building. It's
Right, exactly. We had just a funny story. It just happened this week, actually. I have this tenant. It's the only tenant that was struggling a little bit. He's paying his rent, but he's falling behind, and sometimes he doesn't have the full payment. Small business, and I think he leased too big of a building. So we had a conversation. I said, look, why don't I start marketing this building? Your lease is still 18 months away from being up, but why don't I start marketing the building? If I find a tenant and I can get you out of this situation, it's better to do it. I don't want to come in and change the locks, and
Right.
lock you out of your business. I don't want to put you out of business. And he was very good about it. He says, yeah, Victor, I'll do whatever you want me to do. So I called my broker, and a month later, I got a call back, which was this week. He says, hey, I got this company out of Poland. It's a medical company, and it's a beautiful building. This is a building that we actually built a few years ago. Very good-looking building. So so this company comes in, and we showed the building on Tuesday. And then yesterday, I get a call. They're ready to sign a lease.
Wow.
They're taking a 3-year lease. And because they're out of Poland, we're like, well, how are we going to check the credit of these guys? But they're paying a year up front.
Wow.
hell yeah.
And they're signing a lease. This guy is paying me, the lease is $950. This new company, $11 a square foot.
Wow.
So, even in the commercial world, you still have this ability to, the ability to do things like that. And you got companies that come in and can pay you a year up front.
Right.
Right? So you don't see that type of situation in the residential
No,
world.
not ever. Not ever.
If somebody's falling behind, you take them to court, right? It's going to take you 3-4 months to get them out.
Exactly.
You got all
With
of
commercial-
And the
Yeah.
Massachusetts,
Lock the doors, yeah.
Exactly.
So
the
exactly.
Massachusetts laws protect them so heavily, and they screw the landlord
Right.
for the most
Yep.
part.
Totally.
Residential.
I just
tenant-
went through it. It took us 8 months to get somebody out
Something
of one
like
of our
that, yeah.
properties. Yeah.
Yeah, and commercial, if they don't pay, normally if you the way you have it in the lease, like 3 days to 5 days or whatever, like
You can literally
technically-
change the locks.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you can just change it. I mean, you don't. As the landlord,
You
you
want-
want to
yeah.
work with them because they're a
Yeah.
business owner.
Yeah,
You-
do what
you
he
want-
did, right?
Do what you did.
Right. Exactly.
But if you want to, if they were giving you a hard time, you can just. It's beautiful.
Right. The more-
So is it more industrial or office or?
So again, I feel like sometimes you got to have that formula and stick to that formula. If it worked well for you, then let's not try
Rinse,
to
repeat.
reinvent the wheel.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, it's been warehouse flex space type of spaces. So multi-tenant usually is the best because you can hedge your risk a little bit, because if one tenant leaves, you still have 80 or 75% of the building leased. Banks like it a little bit better.
Yes.
It's easier to do those deals, I think. If you rather than going out finding a 50,000 square foot warehouse, single tenant warehouse, those are tough.
Right.
If
When
you
they
lose a
move out,
tenant, you could be stuck with that warehouse for another 2 or 3 years. Not in this market, but I've seen people go through that and actually lose the property because of it.
Right.
So to me, it has been multi-tenant flex space. It can either be, for example, we just closed on a property in Connecticut. It's 35,000 square feet. It has 6 tenants, and one of the tenants is a 6,000 square foot law firm. I have a rebath franchise in there. I have a gym in there. I have a distributor of automobile cleaning products.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a little bit of everything, and that's the flexibility of a flex space.
Right.
And it's a beautiful park, so a law firm can be there. It could be a medical company, it could be a pharmaceutical company.
I see.
Yeah.
And then what makes you like? Because some people in real estate, they'll focus on, I just focus on, plazas in Massachusetts. I
Right.
just focus on this here. So
And cap rate and stuff
cap
like that.
rates, all that stuff. Like,
Right,
what's
exactly.
when you look at a property, what are you analyzing, and like, what makes you going to go to Connecticut rather than Massachusetts or rather than Rhode Island, for example?
Great question. So if you're trying to buy commercial here in Massachusetts, you're going to know that you're going to pay up some big numbers, especially as you approach the city, Boston, and you're within that 128 or 495 belt, right?
Yeah.
There's very little inventory, which Connecticut has very little inventory. But the main difference is that, so a lot of the properties that we bought, they're usually in that $60 to $80 price range. You have to go back more than 10 years to find anything in Massachusetts that was sold in that price range.
Right.
Okay, that's one reason. But then the rates. So you might have a property here in Mass that you pay $120, $140 a square foot, and then you're leasing it for $10 or $11 a square foot. I can buy a property in Connecticut, for example, for $80 a square foot and lease it for 10 or 9. So you're
I
paying 40%
spread,
less, and you're probably leasing it for 10% less.
Right.
So that spread is
That
yeah.
was smart.
Yeah,
It reminds me of like Worcester, for example.
Yep.
You could buy a property in Worcester, and you just
Totally.
get almost similar rates than you would in, let's say, like North Reading
Mm-hmm.
or something like that. But the price
Exactly.
is just way cheaper.
Exactly.
But some people look at those as risk towns or risk states because the cap rates are so high. But to me, if you ask me, I would say, you know what? I'd rather buy in Worcester or Haverhill
there's a lot
or
of-
Southern New Hampshire.
There's a lot of factors too, like where the population is coming from. Like Worcester's a good example because people are moving to Worcester right now to work. There's colleges,
Right.
Right, exactly.
Right,
Worcester's
right.
definitely booming right now.
But
Right.
you don't want to buy, in the middle of nowhere,
Right.
and there's no population, there's no reason to
Right.
be there, there's no reason
Right.
for growth.
Well, location is definitely key. Like I'm not going throughout the state of Connecticut looking for properties. I want to stay central. So we're within. So what I want is central. So around New Haven is usually where we look.
A little south of Hartford.
Yeah, south of Hartford. So we don't want to be in Hartford, further south,
Yeah.
close to highways, right? We want to be in a desirable location. So location is key. The other important thing I think on the real estate that I see is it's not a main focus. We're growing that side of the business, and I'm always looking for new properties, but I don't have that pressure to go
Passive.
do the next deal at the end of this month
Right.
because I
Passive,
have to grow.
Right.
So that's, I think, also can get you in trouble. If you have that pressure to grow in real estate, you end up getting into the wrong
Into bad deals.
Yeah, the wrong
100%.
deal.
The
We
best
talk about that all the time.
Yeah.
It's like you have your main cash flow business going.
Right. I don't
And
live
then-
off of the real estate.
Exactly. So
right?
it allows
I
you to
don't-
reinvest everything from the real estate, not get forced into bad deals.
Exactly. I think we have a little upside on that.
And the
for-
best
time.
the best deals you can make are the ones you don't 100% need.
Yep.
When you're negotiating and one guy at the other end of the table needs it and you don't, you're like, listen, I don't need this deal.
Right.
This is my number. If you like it, great. If not, again,
Just happened to
this
me.
isn't my
Just happened. Yeah. We just had a deal like that. Not work for us because somebody came in at a much higher price, but offer. But at the end of the day, it hurts that I knew it was a good deal, right? But I wasn't going to take that kind of risk that the other company did to buy the building at what they paid. Just move on to the next one. Right. I wasn't pressured to go up and try to buy, make a bigger offer and get the building and then end up with a problem at the end.
Yeah, exactly. I always call it negotiate like a terrorist. Like you can't be afraid to like blow yourself up and lose the deal.
Yeah.
Right.
Like if you're not afraid, whatever.
Yeah, you got to take the emotions out. Do you feel the pain? Yeah, of course you do. But you can't play that emotion card. You have to get, stick to the facts, right? What are the numbers? What, it's just, I don't want to compare it to gambling, but you have to know when to stop.
Exactly.
You got to know when to stop, right?
Yeah.
Otherwise,
another point is, every business person I've ever spoke to that do really well over a certain threshold are in real estate some capacity, whether it's lending, buying a couple, multifamilies here and there, or commercial. Every really wealthy person or good business person I know ends up dabbling in real estate at some point.
Everybody. I have, and I've been, since we really started investing more in real estate, I've been talking more and more with, whether it's my accountant, my financial advisor, everybody. This is what I keep hearing is, our biggest clients, the most successful ones, they always invested in real estate, no matter what they did. They were a doctor, but they bought the building that their practice was in. Then they invested in this. Then they bought that, and it's true. Like real estate in another 2 to 3 years is going to outpace the growth of our original business and even the income of the business.
Oh, really?
Oh, we're on the track right now to do just that. And that's my goal. My goal is to grow the real estate piece of it bigger than what we did first time around, which is interesting that I've always had this one question. Could I ever do this again? Right? I don't know if you guys ever think. I mean, you got multiple businesses, but it's like, we were successful here. And I have had my failures, don't get me wrong. And the failures they hurt, right? But I've always asked myself, like, could I ever build a business again? Or was it just by luck? I just happened to be at the right place at the right time, at the right, with the right business. And then here we are. I'm looking at this in my 40s because you hear about stories of people actually, most successful business owners, they say, they didn't start their business until they were 40. Right? That used to be the case, not anymore. But now, as I was approaching my 40s, I'm like, am I going to be able to do this again? And now that I have the opportunity to do it, it's really exciting. And it's the level of energy that I have all of a sudden, it feels like 20 years ago when I started the Granite company.
Yeah.
And you take all the scars that you built over the years for the 20 years of in your Granite business, and you apply it so much smarter, so much wiser.
Oh yeah.
It's so much more seamless. It's like ebb and flow.
What can you do now that you have this foundation and this experience that you built, right? And how much can you do it? It almost to me, and I look at it that way, it just puts a little bit more pressure because now it's like, look, I'm not starting from way down here. I have this experience and I have the contacts and you have the network and you have all of, these relationships with banks and brokers that you develop over the years. So you better do a lot bigger than you did before because you're not starting out from down here. You've got an advantage now and you got to build this faster. That's how I feel now.
Yeah.
I mean, I would say two of the main reasons the business got to where it is now is really when we started and where we started, because we kind of got in before everyone. And, we're central to the state in the Worcester area.
Yeah.
So I think that's definitely huge. You can get to Springfield, Boston in an hour.
Yeah. And it happened by chance. So it's a good point that he brings up because I always thought that, was it because I did something special? Was it because we just happened to be in that location? Because you're central. Within 60 miles, you can hit 5-6 major markets, right? So there's a lot of things that happen by luck, I call it. I think every successful person will tell you. There was a little bit of luck sometimes. There's hard work, but there is certain things that happen along the way that I feel that...
And the funny thing is, you wouldn't even think about that back then. But right now, you think about it.
You think back and you see...
A couple balls bounce your court.
It does. Yeah.
It's not all luck, though.
No, it's not all luck.
Not even a little bit.
And some people...
because everybody gets lucky, but who's going to really capitalize on that luck, right?
Exactly. You're going to make your luck.
And some people think that, luck is to me a loose word. To me, I think that you earn it. Like you visualize it, or you essentially you build your own luck. It's not like by chance of God. You were doing something, you visualize something, your energy, the things that you were bringing to your attention, like it happens to you.
You put yourself in that position. Exactly. That's how in most cases I think that I say.
Yeah, you can turn. You look at any situation that happened, and you can call it lucky. Like you were lucky that happened in Brazil with your dad when he was 53, and he came here. Now that situation was
That
terrible,
happened
but
to
it was
millions
lucky.
of other people that came but didn't do anything
Exactly.
with it, right?
What did you
Right.
do with that opportunity that now you look back and say it was luck?
There's luck, yeah.
You know?
It's a good point. I mean, to me, there are opportunities which hundreds, if not thousands of people have had, but you capitalize on it and you made it, now you look back and say, oh, I was lucky that this happened. But it's not. It was an opportunity. You just happened to make it, something out of it.
I have a couple questions because in the business, you've had a great business career. And to someone to do a business for 20 years is really impressive. What were like your unlocks along the way? Like, what was something you learned along the way? Like, whoa, that was something huge to then now grow my business. Like, do you have any of those unlock moments?
I think there are several, but I would
The
say
recruiting one you talked about
the
earlier was a
recruiting,
good one.
yeah. So we early on we knew that the business was about people, and when I say people, it's not just customers, right? It's the right people, the right employees in the right seats, driving that bus, but also the right vendors, the right relationships outside of that, whether it's banks or anything like that. I've had the one that I shared with you that we took this approach that recruiting, finding people was going to take center stage just like sales. We're going to treat recruiting just like we treat sales. We need great people to help us run the business, to help us service our customers. Just like we need great customers to purchase and pay us, right? Purchase our product and pay us. We also took that approach in the relationships that we build. Accountants, banks, you name it, lawyers, whoever we need. It was always, let's find the best. But I would say the accounting, I found this accountant years ago, and Keith Blanchett, great guy, and his credibility, his know-how, and my comfort in having him there, and my trust in him has allowed me to grow the business. And he's the type of guy, because he's well connected. Every time we needed a loan for a new building, whatever, I would call him, hey Keith, listen, I got this opportunity. What do you think? And we would sit down, discuss the opportunity. He goes, yeah, I think it's great. I think you can do it. And that gave me a little level of confidence, right? And I'd go out and get the deal done, and then he would help me secure the financing for that deal. Wow. And because he had those relationships with banks, because he's got bigger clients that also have big relationships with banks, the banks trust his information, his reporting is solid, and it made my life a little bit easier. And it also gave me the confidence to be able to close those deals.
You know what that reminds me of?
Yeah.
A mastermind idea. Like the idea of being in a mastermind, you're around like-minded people that could have a different skill set than you, that could bring you more value. And that's what, again, that was one of our unlocks that you're like, whoa.
You have a good advisory team around you, like a good accountant, a good lawyer, a good, everybody around you, so you can make the right decisions.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. There are people out there that can do most of it by themselves, and they're smarter than anybody they can put around them. It's dangerous, in my opinion, number one. But there are people that have done that successfully. But I think for the majority of us in business, we need better people doing certain things in our business, and let them take that role, whether it's an accountant or a good CFO or a good sales manager. When we try to take certain roles within our business that we're not probably as qualified as somebody else to do it, that's I think when we get in trouble.
Right. Do you have a CFO in your business?
We don't. We have a controller, actually, and she does a great job. And I happen to do the whole finance side of things and CFO. I didn't go to school for it. I learned the hard way, and I like doing it. It is getting to the point that it's a little bit too much, but having a good accountant that really works well with me as a business advisor, just not doing my taxes or closing the months. I can bounce things off of him and get really good input and advice. And then I have a really good controller within the business that can keep the record on point, and can do some cash flow projections and can do some certain things. Yeah. It's worked out well, and it allows me to take that role of CFO.
Yeah. So I think I would consider I'm probably the CFO, right? And it's like we need to hire somebody to do it. I mean, we've been playing around with it. Do we hire a CFO?
We need a Keith Blanch, is what we
need. Yeah.
We need
without a doubt.
Right, but Keith Blanch is the CPA, is your accountant.
Yeah,
right?
but he's firm again. He does different roles, more so like being a true business advisor and work alongside with you to guide you to the right places. Right.
So, but like a CFO that like works for your company exclusively.
If he's doing cash flow projections and things like that. Yeah, it's important, especially you guys have a lot going on. You have a lot of moving pieces, right?
Exactly.
That's important.
We need somebody, like we need a figure that part out. That's the one missing piece that we have right now.
During your growth, how did you do with delegation? Because obviously when you start a business, and everyone knows this, was like you're doing everything. You're the finance guy, you're the sales, you're doing it in the back. As you grew, what was your advice to delegate? Like, was there a point of like, listen, I'm just not good at this. Let me find someone better in my place. Like, what was your kind of strategy during that?
I do that very well. Well, some people say I try. I'm not a good delegator sometimes because I try to also do certain things maybe that I shouldn't do. But the reality is that I always found people that did whatever role they were in better than I could.
Yeah.
And I always let them run with it. Like just go back when we started investing heavily into technology in our business, the CNCs and the robots and digital templating. And when this stuff was new, I took my best person, who's now the general manager, but at the time I said, look, by the way, I bought $1 million worth of equipment, and I said, I don't know how to run it. I don't know even what this thing does, but I think it's good. But go over there.
Cool, yeah.
Looks cool. I think they said it's going to pay back. We're going to make some money with this, but go out there and try to figure out how this works. Build a team around it, and he did. And I think I had one conversation. That was it. And I never even questioned him. He was the right guy, but the reality is I never even questioned him. He did all the hiring. He trained. He put it all together. And within 6 months, we had all this equipment up and running. We're doing digital. I mean, we converted everything to digital in 6 months.
Wow.
But I couldn't do it myself. I was trying to run the business, right? But I've done certain things that again, I wasn't trained. I didn't go to school to do that. But I think I've trusted certain people that could do the job better than I could. And I let them run with it.
So
get out of their way.
If you ask me, that's the answer to the question I asked earlier. What's the difference? Like, how did you guys get? That's it right there. I think
it is.
Like, because a lot of people in that industry, and a lot of just small businesses in general, one of the things that holds them from being big is the idea that they're the only ones that can do it. Like, oh no, nobody does it like I do, and then they want to do everything, control, and that keeps you small.
Yeah, it's interesting. There was, again, going back to, because my lack of business school. I had to learn from reading and listening, going to events, whatever. And at one point I heard this one quote from J. Paul Getty. I don't know if you guys have heard, which was I'd rather have 1% of the efforts of 100 people rather than 100% of my own effort.
I love that.
And that stuck in my mind, because I said, I think, like you said, some people want to try to do it all on their own. And they think that all of the results are going to be based on 100% of my own effort.
Right.
And I've never thought of it that way. That's why I give the power to multiple people. Like, I'd rather have a little bit of what you're doing, and I'm whole at 100%, and I don't have to do all the heavy lifting, all the work. And in turn, by the way, it sounds a little bad when you think about it. Like, do I only have my best interest in mind? No, because all of those people that I trusted, right, to give them those responsibilities, let me tell you, they're living their best life ever. Their income is high. I mean, they're getting well compensated to do it. And we gave them the opportunities to grow.
Right.
And to be in the place that they are today. So they are reaping the benefits just as much as I am.
Yeah. That's beautiful.
When you were rocking in the beginning, right, when you first started, was there ever a plan B for you? Like, was there ever like, if I fail, I will do, or it was, I will not fail, or I'll die on this CNC machine, what was your mentality?
It really was nothing.
Yeah. No, I believe it or not, again, going back to books, right? The World's Greatest Salesman, Augmentino. There's, you get towards the end of that book, and it's, they have, he says, it's got the scrolls. And there's one of these scrolls is about not ever giving up, right? And fighting and not having an option to, there's no second plan. And so to me, it was always, okay, there's never a second plan. Even aviation, I never thought about, well, I can always go back to that. There's never been that in my mind. Yeah.
Again, there's a lot of common traits. The reason why we do these episodes is to find the commonalities between different business owners, because we think business is just a foundation, right? Like, you can apply it to 1,000 different businesses, and one of the commonalities, like the common denominators, is 99% there is no plan B for some of these guys. So something to take away.
Right.
Yeah. There's a lot of good takeaways here. So that brings us up to like our last question of the day that we ask everybody. So what is the best piece of advice or best thing that you've learned along the way that you could pass off to a young entrepreneur or somebody who's in business now?
I think it's what we just discussed. I think, don't think you know it all.
Yeah.
and don't think you have to do it all,
Yeah.
right? Find the right people that's going to help you get there. It's going to be a lot faster, and you'd be surprised how many people are willing to walk along with you and help you build what you're trying to build. And they're out there. I think that would be my best advice. Cause
Yeah, I mean, you told me the
That's great
same thing
advice.
for years, so
yeah,
I know that.
That's great advice.
Yeah.
I love that. So where can the viewers find you? So with Discover Surfaces.
So
right?
Discover Surfaces, we're in Millbury, Massachusetts at 4 Laddie Farm Road, but we're also in Connecticut, in Wallingford, Connecticut, Fort Myers, Florida,
Yeah.
and Wareham, Massachusetts.
Yeah.
Wait a minute, Mill Farm. Is that
Milb-
near the build?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
The-
It's 2 seconds away.
The
Yeah.
building that we invested in. What the hell?
Yeah.
That's
No,
what a
we
small-
drove by it. We drove there for a meeting. And I'm like, holy shit, that's That's
Yeah, we're
just
right there. Yeah.
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 Yeah, we'll get into that off air.
Yeah.
I don't want to talk about that on air. Get in trouble.
All right,
So,
perfect.
all right, guys, have a great day.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Appreciate it.